to Go When God Calls podcast. Today, I'm really excited. We have an interview with Melissa Hughes. And I just love Melissa's story. I know Melissa. I'm actually in her social media mentorship class. I wanted you to get to know Melissa today. Let me tell you a little bit about Melissa before we get started. Melissa has been booked twice on the Kelly Clarkson Show and featured for the New York Times bestseller Primal Scream on NBC. She has over 200,000 followers on TikTok and has over 5.7 million likes. She has been a best-selling author for She Can Laugh, a guide to living emotionally, physically, and spiritually well as her first children's book, Mommy Loves You When, through Dinosaur Publishing House. Melissa has most recently been a contributing author with Matthew Browning in the book Driven to Courage, and has been a keynote speaker for the Point Church Women's Conference a and a featured guest. Her bachelor's degree is in exercise science, and she is a certified holistic health coach. Melissa has done missionary work in Wales, UK for several years, but now resides in Grand Rapids, Michigan with her husband and two children. Welcome, Melissa, to my podcast, Go When God Calls. I'm so excited that you're here with us today. And I just want you to tell us all about how you were a missionary for 4 years in
Yeah.
Wales, right?
Yep.
I want to hear about how God called you there.
Mm.
I've heard her testimony. I'm really excited about this, but I want you to hear from Melissa. Tell us about your call and how you answered that call, but what God did in you, and
Yeah.
then how you got back to the United States.
Okay. Since I was little, I actually always had this desire to live in the UK. It just seemed like a magical place. I don't know, but I just always remember like wanting to live in Ireland or England. And so it's just funny how God puts desires in our heart because I ended up really fully committing my heart to the Lord when I was 19. And um, I met my husband, who is a dual citizen. So he is from the UK. And so when we got married, I just remember feeling like all the stars were aligning. Like maybe one day we would live in the UK together, and how cool I got to marry a dual citizen. And then it was a couple years later that we were actually just leaving a church meeting. It was like a young adults meeting. And our pastor, who is my husband's father, was just like driving past, like through the parking lot as he was leaving, and he just rolled his window down and he just looked at me and my husband. He said, "Hey, what would you guys say about going and planting a church over in the UK this year?" And my husband, without skipping a beat, he was like, "We're in." And then
Oh, cool.
yeah, he just rolled his window up. He was like, "Perfect, we'll talk about it." He just rolled his window up and drove away, and I was like, "Wait, what just happened?" What happened? But I was delighted. I just felt like it was my dream and just so excited. It was like an easy yes, even though we like had just bought a house. So we sold that house, we left our jobs, sold our car, but it didn't feel hard, Angie. It felt like I'm going on an adventure. Sorry, it just gets me emotional talking about it because of what actually ended up happening. About a month after moving there, my husband got into a horrible car accident. And so he was bedridden for 6 months, but in a wheelchair for up to a year. And when that happened, he had a head on collision. When that
Oh,
happened, I just remember this feeling being like, oh, well, it's okay. I remember even praying for people in the hospital, being like, the enemy's not going to have his way. And, just being like, well, God's good and it's all going to work out. But I don't know if you've ever had it where it doesn't end up feeling like that. And the only place that would rent to us, because we didn't have jobs or anything, and we had no rent history, the only place that would rent to us was a funeral home in a valley. And I was pregnant, and my husband was, yeah, bedridden in a wheelchair. And the people that we were leading the church with, they left. So we had this like small group of people that we then took the church over, and we just started hosting meetings in our living room with my husband. I just remember being like, well, it's okay. God's going to work it out. And then it just seemingly like challenge after challenge. I mean, church planting is not for the faint of heart. So it's just a
No.
really difficult time. And I remember a friend calling me one day from the States, and she was like, hey, Melissa, how's it going? And I just remember being like, yeah, we've had some challenges, but it's okay. God's good. And there was just like a long pause. And she's just like, Melissa, it's okay to say that things are just really hard right now. And Angie, I couldn't even get those words out of my mouth. I couldn't even like accept that, because what I was actually feeling underneath the surface of all these circumstances was this question that I didn't have an answer to, which was, but if God is so good, why would he call us into something so bad? And it just felt like my faith was now incongruent with my circumstances. And I just didn't know how to navigate that. And I didn't have an answer. So by like actually saying that out loud, I was accepting where I was at and actually acknowledging it and feeling like I just spiraled. I don't know what to do. The thing that like I've built my life on is now crumbled, and I feel like I'm having a crisis of faith, which is the thing that I've always so deeply believed in, and I don't know what I believe right now. And I had to just sit in that. I had to sit in that for years and really allow God to meet me there, which was so painful and so confusing and so difficult and so hard. And I remember then one day walking around this park by my house. It was like the only beautiful thing that I felt was in that season. It was just the most beautiful park with flowers growing everywhere, and I was pushing my two kids in the stroller. And I just prayed and was like, God, how can anything good really come from this? I just feel like I'm a mess. And I just felt like God whispered to me, and he was like, Melissa, mountaintop experiences are for sights and inspiration, but fruit grows in the valley. And that actually is a Billy Graham quote. And I realized that I wanted, like what I thought when I said yes to Jesus was this like pain free adventure, this life where, God just rescues me. And that wasn't what he was calling me to. He was calling me to a profound life where we face challenges, where we have battles, but through Christ, we can overcome. And that is a profound life. It's both the valley and the mountaintop. And so it completely changed my story. It completely changed my identity because I didn't see that I was a failure. I saw that I was actually living out the adventure that God promised me. And it was good. And it was God doing a work on the inside. And then it was a couple years later, God called us home, and I felt him start speaking to me about video content, very random. And I posted this video on TikTok, which was very random. And it got 22 million views, and I ended up on the Kelly Clarkson show. And
That's
just from that
awesome.
point, yeah, God took me into this whole world of entrepreneurship.
You spoke at a Globe Family Forum, and I don't think I was present, but I watched the video later. I will be completely honest. I said, that is awesome. I love this person. She can speak. She has some profound words, but that social media stuff isn't for me. Still, something you said in that time that you spoke with the missionaries, it was, today you don't have tent revivals or you don't have platforms. Our platform is our cell phone.
Hmm.
How that we can make an impact globally by
Hmm.
sharing our faith and sharing content on social media. That right there would not leave me.
Mm.
And I remember that I signed up for your TikTok class about 3 hours before Scott sent us this opportunity to have this class with you. I had set up a
Wow.
meeting and everything. I messaged you later and said, Melissa, I didn't know that Scott was doing this. So do you still want to keep the meeting, or do you want me to just come to this class? And it was kind of like God was saying, don't knock it till you try it, or Angie, it's more than what you think it is. So I love it when I hear you say random, do video content. You had no idea this is where it was going to lead and what was going to happen and come out of it. But I know for me, so much has come out of it. So
Mhm.
that statement has been profound. Can you talk about that just a little bit? You say it better
Yeah.
than I do.
Yeah, no, you said it exactly right. I think what I just started to realize, especially I feel like anyone that has a heart for God, they're like, we want to reach people. And when you look at what God has done, it was like we think of Billy Graham. He hosts
You
tent
do.
meetings and people come and they experience the power of God. But what I've been noticing on social media is that people are encountering Christ through a screen, which we've noticed even with the explosion of TV, like Joyce Meyer and all these preachers, but it was like you had to be this like superstar Christian to be able to get connected to a producer, to have a show, to be able to talk about Jesus and broadcast the gospel. But now it's like, wait a second, we all have a cell phone that we can just pick up and be able to record a video that then can reach people. It's completely cut out the middleman. And so when we have
Absolutely.
this like scripture in the Bible that says, go and preach the gospel to all nations, and then God gives us this really weird, unusual tool that a lot of us are using, what, to like check social media and people's highlight reels. But I'm over here seeing this as like an amplifier for the gospel. It just changes the way that you use it, and it changes like how you show up because you now have a realization that your voice matters and can reach people from anywhere at any time.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. So God told you to start making videos on TikTok and you did that. And
Hmm.
how was that? For me, the first time I was like, okay, this is like really strange. I don't know how to do this. That's why I took your class. But it's amazing to me that God would say that, and then you've got to figure it out.
Yeah. Yes. Oh man. Isn't that so how he works? He like gives us a
Mhm.
word and then he doesn't want to just give us the answer. He wants to actually like partner with us. He just really loves the relationship, doesn't he?
He does.
He doesn't want to just like give us the answer and go do it. He's like, no, I want to do this with you. I'm gonna like, give you the breadcrumbs along the way.
Yeah,
So, yeah, no, it has been an ever evolving journey of like trying and failing and figuring it out and seeing and praying and then God bringing the right person. Like, similarly to you, Angie, it's like you had dreams and desires, and it's wild how like God brought me into your life and brought Ryan and all these people, and He's pulling this out of you. And, it was always in there, but it's been a surprise to you and also challenging as you've evolved and grown into more of who God's calling you to be. And I have felt the same way.
absolutely.
Hmm.
My podcast is Go When God Calls. So we're talking to people and encouraging them to go and serve God. Now, I feel like we're all called to be missionaries. I feel like
Hmm.
as a Christian, we are supposed to share the gospel. One way we just talked about was on our cell phones on social media.
Hmm.
But another way is when you are called to leave the United States or your country, wherever you're at, you're called to go and do something different. What I'm learning is it's a new day, it's a new world, it's a new way to share what you do.
Hmm.
There was a time where, as a missionary, go and share in a church, people became partners, and that still happens. And
Hmm.
we write newsletters, and that's still a very good avenue. But it's not the new thing. The new thing is to be on social media.
Hmm.
That's where people are. And we get the opportunity to share Jesus and be an encouragement, but also share our ministry or share our call that God
Hmm.
has put on our life. But for some of us, we're kind of like in that situation where, can we do that? Are we supposed to do that? That's weird. That's cringy. That's how do I do that?
Hmm.
And yet it makes a huge impact. on somebody else's life. You just said it. We get the opportunity to use our voice to encourage somebody else.
Mm.
And I think some of us are afraid. I was afraid. You're right. I had all this stuff and ideas and stuff that God had given me in me, but I didn't know what to do with it. I literally, to be honest, thought I'm a missionary. I'm supposed to be here and just help in Africa. I never thought about doing it globally.
Mm-hmm.
So, in all that, how would you encourage someone to get started in social media? And
Yeah.
how important do you feel that it is for a missionary or somebody doing ministry to share on social media?
Yeah. Well, somebody actually said it recently. It was John Stoggy, who is a pastor and also he has his own business and he's on social media and has a podcast. But he said the word stewardship. And I just loved that because we are sharing all the time. You know, you're sharing with your boys, you're giving words, you're giving messages. And what happens is that message just it goes into obviously the hearts of the people that you're around, but we now have the opportunity to capture that message. Like right now, we're recording this conversation. We are capturing this message of education, of information, and hopefully transformation that then can go out and reach more people. So it's like rather than just, touching 5 people, we could touch 500 with the same conversation. So we become multipliers of our words and the gospel. And I just think that that is incredible stewardship. And I think that's what we should do as kingdom believers. So to have your phone and to have a message and to have something that's inside of you that, yeah, at first it does feel cringy to record yourself. But when you think about the person that you're wanting to set free or show up for, or that person that you were 5 years ago that you're like, man, if I could just tell them this, and you can actually put a video out there that an algorithm can target that person to get that video in front of, man, to me, I'm like, why are we not doing that? I actually know why. It's a lot of what we talked about imposter syndrome. What are people going to think? The judgment of others, right? Is what I have to say good enough? We doubt ourselves, all those things. But when we can get out of the doubt, the fear, and the unbelief and into a place of serving people, then we can reach and impact more people.
I love that. You also talked about how that you were in childcare and
Mm-hmm.
how you wanted something different for your children, for your family.
Yeah.
And now God has given you an amazing opportunity not to just share, but to make it a business.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have learned in the last year and a half after taking your TikTok class and being in your social media mentorship class is that we can do both. We
Mm.
can do ministry and serve the Lord and share and encourage. I get so excited because I love that social media now helps me show, transport my supporters and partners and prayer warriors to Mozambique. I get to transport them to Mozambique when I share about the ministry and what
Mm.
God is doing here because of them.
Mm.
And then I get to encourage other people with whatever I'm going through. It's kind of opened my eyes to that I have 23 and almost 24 years of experience as a missionary that might be helpful to somebody else.
Mm.
And so it's opened up all of these different avenues. I loved that interview with John, that
Mm-hmm.
those years of experience can now possibly, where God's leading it, have a way where I can teach other people
Yeah.
about being a missionary and yet it possibly be my own small little business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying this very eloquently, but it's like taking missions into what I've heard you, I believe, say before, into the marketplace, that it's okay that we can do that. We don't have to just be a missionary and we can be more.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do both. I mean that is
Yes.
so mind-blowing to me. And just even to see how people in business are using their business as the open door to share the gospel. That is so exciting to me because we do need it. Somebody said this and I resonated with it. They said money doesn't mean anything, but then it means everything. And there came a point for me as a missionary where money was an issue. It's like we want to just share Jesus. And
Mhm.
yes, but also money is the currency of how we function and operate and the opportunities that we can have as people and for our family. And it was very stressful, very difficult, and very challenging when we were over in the UK and we financially struggled. I'm not saying over here we needed a Rolls Royce. We just wanted the money to have groceries and childcare when we needed it and make our bills, like just basic things like that. And so I just am seeing, Angie, which is so exciting, this opportunity as well with the explosion of the internet for people to be able to use social media and things like that to leverage an online platform and to get the message out there.
I think it's exciting. It's hard because people don't really know where I've come from to know
Mm,
where I am today. I'm still in Africa and I take classes all the time online to learn more.
yep,
I have a group of women with you and the social media mentorship that we're all over the place. That
yep.
is so exciting that the internet or that, like you said, technology has exploded to a point where we
Mm.
don't have to be in the same place to learn from each other. That means there's more and more and more that's coming. What would you say to a missionary right now who is getting started or who is maybe already on the field and just says, I don't know if I can do that? What would you say to them?
Oh man, I would just say that if I could tell you that you could reach many people from anywhere using your phone with the gospel, would you do it? Most people would say yes. And then if I were to say, what if I were to tell you that you have other skills, gifts, interests like quilting, bread making, things like that, that people will pay you to teach them how to do those things, and you can create another stream of income that supports your missional efforts by creating content and sharing about it online so that people can find you, because you can only do business with people who know about you. And so if nobody knows about you, if nobody knows that you are amazing with making bread and that someone would actually pay you for that, people can't work with you. And I think the biggest thing, Angie, that I would say is it is amazing to me what people can generate money for based on the skills that they have. When I was growing and creating videos online and I'm growing a following, someone said to me, Melissa, why don't you teach people how to do that? My gut response was nobody would pay me to do that because it was easy for me. And I just thought, why would people pay me for that? And the guy said, yes, they would. And this is God. He went back to a friend of his who he thought might be interested, and they hired me on the spot. I didn't even get my first client because this guy was trying to show me that my skills were more valuable than what I thought they were. So, for a missionary, make a list of things that you love to do, skills that you're good at, and then do some market research and see, are people making money from this? Like, is this something I could do? And then, I'm literally giving you the business plan. Start creating content around it and start sharing and inviting people. Say, hey, I'll give you tips on how to make sourdough bread if you pay me for my time, however much you decide, and you just start creating income from it. And it's incredible. It works.
It works.
It
And it's
works.
amazing. I remember starting your TikTok class, and then we did the social media mentorship. And then God brought back all those things that He's talked to me about for years. Then I start a podcast. I'm like, I never thought I would do a podcast in my
Uh-huh.
entire life. That's never been anything but I want to help others. I want to encourage others to get started, to go, to step out, because I feel like God has a plan for every one of us.
Amen.
Sometimes it might be teaching us how to do social media. And
Totally.
so, do you still do your TikTok class?
I am doing it for nonprofits or for certain people, like a one-off. I don't
Mhm.
advertise it necessarily on my social media, but I'm pitching it as far as like workshops or ways that I could come into an organization and being able to teach like that. Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
I love teaching and educating like that.
Well, you also said in your bio that you have your bachelor's degree in health
Exercise
science
science,
and you're a certified health
health
coach.
coach. Uh-huh.
So, do you use any of that in all of your business efforts as well?
It's funny because I wrote a book about health in 2016. It was before I was on social media, really. And it's all about health. But to be honest, I think that actually helped me grow my social media with on TikTok. So it was all about motherhood. And a lot of what I
Yes.
learned from that class or right is about helping your kids eat healthy food, picky eating. So I would make content around stuff that I knew that people like were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so helpful." Again, something that I was like, "Man, people don't know about this or what they're finding what I'm saying helpful." That was just a skill that I learned. So, I don't directly do any type of like health coaching or anything right now outside of coaching my children. But
That's a
yes,
full-time
that's
job.
yes, so that's how that goes.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
you have two children and you wrote a children's book.
I did. Yes, it's
That
called
is an incredible book, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's called Mommy Loves You When, and it's all the things that I feel like moms, the way that moms feel about their children, but we get so busy sometimes that we just don't tell them. So it's a book of like what a mother would want to say to her kids every day, which are things like, I love you when you're happy and when you're sad. I love you on your
Mhm.
good days and your bad days. I'm proud of you. I like you. I like who you are. Things like that. It's a book like that that you can read with your kiddo.
I have used some of the things that you have shared on social media, even your book. I have used that on my son.
Oh.
So it's been very encouraging to me. My son is amazing. He's on the autism scale. I've said, I love you no matter if you do right or wrong. I love you just the way you are. I love you. And he just hugs me even harder.
Mhm.
I'm grateful. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are grateful too. You taught us something recently that your content brings value to somebody else.
Mhm.
And that is true. And so, if that is something that we could all do, wow, we
Yeah.
could change the world.
Absolutely. Do it. Go when God calls. Create the video, post the content.
Amen. And you started your own social media agency, right?
I did. Yeah, God
How
has
did that
just
happen?
Oh, Angie. When I started coaching business owners, I realized that they don't have the time to to make their own content. And so I developed an agency where we will create, edit, and post your content for you just to
Wow.
support business owners. Yeah. Level two of how
Yeah,
God has evolved my business. And it's been really good.
that is a really encouraging point. You just said level two. The thing about God is He's always got something new for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, there's more levels to come. We just
Mm-hmm.
have to be willing to go there. And
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm learning for myself is, am I willing to step out and go there? And I've
Mm.
gotten through most of the cringy, I don't like making the videos. I've gotten through most of that. Every once in a while it
Mm.
comes back. But it's more about realizing that you have something to share and you can give value helping somebody else. So those
Mm.
have been things I've learned, and level three is on the way.
Amen. Thank you. I believe that.
If there was one thing, just one thing that you could share with somebody right now listening, what would that be?
God sees you. He sees you today. He sees you right where you're at. He knows everything about you. He knows how many hairs are on your head. He knows what makes you smile, what pisses you off, what delights your heart, and He's with you. That's what I would say, is that God sees you and He is our provider. And so, whatever you stand in need of, ask Him for it. Even like there are some days, Angie, where I'll be like, God, would you just encourage me today? And then I'll get a little message from someone. Or, my daughter will come over and say, Mommy, I love you. And thank you for being my mom. Just stuff like that. I feel like God's always that scripture that says, Surely goodness and love will chase us down all the days of our life. I feel like He's
Amen.
always wanting to do that. But we also need to be open and recognize and ask for the things that we need and know that God gives us the things that we didn't even know that we needed.
Amen. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm very, very blessed. I will put links to everything about Melissa, like her books and she has a podcast she can share, which is awesome. And so that you can find Melissa and all of her social media links as well. So thank you again, Melissa, and God bless you. And I'll see you guys next week on Go When God Calls.
Thanks, Angie.
Thank you.